Hi, everyone. How's it going today? So I am experienced a couple of issues today just getting on. There were some issues, and then I'm having some microphone issues as well. So good way to come back to going live. So please, as you come into the comments, just let me know that you can see and hear me okay. Um, yeah, just a couple of funky little things. This is part of the joy of going live is that things happen and that's okay. And so thank you everybody so much for being here. Hey, Liz, as you're coming in, we'll talk a little bit about the big tech hiring outlook today. Um, looks like audio and visual are good. Yeah, my professional mic all of a sudden just broke this morning and won't work. So we'll work through that. The audio should be fine. Without it, it's just nicer with a microphone always. So it's kind of going through, we'll take a step back before we go forwards. I was looking through like all the live sessions this year, and I realized last week was actually the first time I hadn't gone live all this year. I didn't realize that. So that was really cool. That means I'll probably get to about 50 live sessions this year, which is awesome. Obviously, I always love to show up for this community. So as you're coming into this live session, really important to understand that this is we're going to talk about the big tech hiring outlook in our downtime, but this is an open Q&A session. Anything and everything is on the table, and I'm really here to help with everything. So whatever you want to chat about today, happy to chat about it. I have a huge favor to ask this group. I want you to go back. If anybody in this group who's watching now is open to work, definitely watch that video that I put out yesterday. It's about a 15-minute video. And for anybody who's looking for a job, if you're using LinkedIn, I guarantee that the steps that I outline in that video will help. And I really want to encourage anybody who's watching that video, share it. We all know somebody who's open to work. We all know many people who are open to work, and not implementing the tips in yesterday's video it's a critical mistake. And so I just want to be as transparent and straightforward as possible. If you are open to work, get that banner on your LinkedIn profile and follow all the steps that I mentioned in yesterday's video. And just share it with your friends, because we all know at least 1, 5, 10, 50, 100 people who are open to work and looking for jobs right now. And I just know that video will be super helpful to anybody looking for work. It's going to highlight ways to optimize your LinkedIn profile. Okay, we have a good audience this week, so let's dive in. Please, any questions, any comments, where you're visiting from, anything that's on your mind, any information that's come in. Let's chat about everything today. So before we dive in, just quick note, coupon promo code. If you use that coupon code TECH, 20% off of our AI tool and interview mastery course today. We released modular feedback on the AI tool about 2 to 3 weeks ago. What does that mean? It breaks down your answers. So if you're answering a question using the STAR method, it's literally going to tell you piece by piece how to fix your answer. It's our differentiator. No other AI interview product is breaking it down into sections and saying, hey, in your actions, focus in on these 3 things. You missed this one critical item in your results. And then you're just working on one thing. It's easier. When we get overwhelmed with information, what do? We shut down. It's just a natural human trait, right? So we really built the tool bite-sized, small, 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 so you can see wins. When we see wins, whether that's with our interview prep or changes in our diet or just little things, it encourages us to keep going. And that's what the tool is really meant to do. And of course, still getting great feedback on that interview mastery course. Check that out. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, negotiation coaching, and strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn building. That's all available at practiceinterviews.com. And by the way, we got a ton of free resources there. I got 100 blog posts. You can join our free Slack community of over 4,000 members. Tons of opportunities there. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday, new long-form content Mondays, and then I try to do at least a couple of shorts during the week. Let's dive in. Let's have some fun. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Let's dive in, and thank you again for being here. Hey, Liz, good to see you. Yes, thanks so much for being here, as always. Hey, Jeff, we're seeing you now. Amazing. Brad, my audio and video guru, thank you for being here. Hey, Edward, thanks for being here. Hey, Jeff, missed your live last week. I wasn't live for the first time last week, so you didn't miss anything. I'm back today, and no breaks that I can see coming up in the future right now. Hey, Jeff, I have an upcoming Google CE AI ML RRK next week. Do you already have a video for that? Or please provide some tips on this. Oh, CE role. Yeah, I did I've done a couple of CE videos. One of the items that I always recommend that people do, and I get it, like it's very, very easy to miss. When you go on anybody's YouTube page and you like what they're doing, if you'll see kind of categories and a breakdown, you'll see a search. So if you literally search on my YouTube page, customer engineer, you'll see I did a video maybe it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I wanted to do a refresher video on that. So I have a couple of videos on that. In the RRK, you're going to get a mix of 3 things. It's usually behavioral, hypothetical, and technical, right? And they're all going to be pretty close to the role. Now, the technical questions are more about understanding just how does cloud work? So they might say, how does Netflix work in the cloud? Now, remember, there's a lot of different angles. You can take it from a user perspective. You could take it from a compute perspective or a load balancing perspective. So always clarifying the technical questions is still really, really important. But you'll get a mix of all 3. And remember, they're hiring you for your foundational cloud knowledge, but GCP, RRK interview, I would learn GCP as much as you possibly can. Just understand the terms, bring them into the conversation. When we speak in like terms, it makes us more likable. So if we're just talking about generic cloud stuff, it's like, it's okay. But if we're talking about Kubernetes and BigQuery and some of these more specific technologies that GCP uses, it's just going to make your audience a little bit more connected to you. A lot of my coaching is more general science and psychology than Google specific. I'm just trying to capture and build off of what we know humans emotionally connect to. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff from Miami. Glad you took a well-deserved break. Thank you so much. A little short trip up to LA. It was beautiful. Thank you. Hey, Jeff. Hello, Tallahassee. Awesome. Hey, Jeff. Thank you so much for your content. Thanks for your help. I'm currently in the team match process. Okay. One tidbit of information, I love information, I've inferred is that it seems that some recruiters can't talk about HC. So not everyone will get their feedback as clear as we'd like. Just a heads up for someone in this step. All right, let's talk about this a little bit. Some recruiters choose not to talk about HC and some do. How much information should that recruiter give you about what actually happened in HC? Yeah, they should protect the confidentiality, but it's not a rule where some recruiters can say more than others. Recruiters at Google are interesting. They're not trained in the classic way, I would say. Like, it's not recruiting 101, which I would recommend Google does. I would recommend any of these companies do that. They just take recruiters back through a 101. They may learn some stuff, but it's kind of more based on their communication preference more than anything else. And so the only thing I would do as a recruiter with HC is I tell you the exact time HC is meeting. I tell you the exact time I'd follow up with you via phone call. And then once I got HC's result, I would just tell you that result and tell you next steps. And that's it. Anything else that they're doing at this stage of the process just doesn't make sense to me. It should be very transparent and straightforward. Your meeting, HC is meeting at 10 a.m. At the latest, I'll be calling you at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And that's it. And then I'll have you ready and prepared to take a phone call. Or if you can't take a call at that time, whatever time you can take a call as soon after HC as possible, then we'll talk through it and we'll talk about next steps. I did that 100% of the time with every candidate I had over a 5-year period of time. And it just seems like recruiters are having a lack of transparency about when HC is meeting, when they follow up after HC, and this just creates a bad candidate experience. As a candidate, you should be able to ask, what time is HC meeting? Can I expect to hear back from you, and what are the potential results? Which is a yes, no, or maybe, by the way. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. It's always a really, really good conversation to have, and it's a data point, right? And that's part of these lives too. I'm happy to give all the guidance, but a lot of times everybody who's showing up to these lives knows more than I do. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. You have your interview in exactly 7 days. All right. Well, it's kind of funny that you're saying that because, I do a monthly newsletter for anybody who's just done a general sign up to my website, bought a service, any of that stuff. So I actually mapped out in that newsletter a 7-day interview prep plan. So if you're not signed up, you can just go to practiceinterviews.com and literally just enter your email and you'll just get those newsletters. They also give you discounts as well, but I work through a 7-day prep plan, and really I'll highlight quickly the biggest things to focus in on those prep plan are schedule out the time on your calendar and stay rigid to that time. And then you definitely want to be pre-planning to reach out to some people to see if you can get some practice in this upcoming weekend, see if they'll give you a little bit of time. And then when you do that with people, you want to give them the questions, send them the invite. You want to be really, really prepared. Just because like the more prep you give the person you're going to practice with, you make it easier on them, right? Easier on them to show up and actually help you. Check that out. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff from Rio. Oh, absolutely. One of the most beautiful cities in the world. Was really fortunate to get to spend some time there. Love it. Thanks for being here. Hey, Jeff, I'm interviewing for an entry-level sales advertising job, and one of the preferred qualifications is Google Ads experience. Most of my ad experience was on the Amazon platform. How do I proceed? You're interviewing. Okay, so I probably want you to come back, Nick, and tell me a little bit more about your timeline so we can figure out how in depth to go. I mean, the basics, and that's probably going to mean skipping over maybe like a certification. And maybe going straight to YouTube and just learning about the different types of Google ads, but it's going to help just to bring up a Performance Max, or you're talking a little bit about YouTube ads, or anything that you can do to shape and add a little bit of color in your answers when talking about Google ads in the interviews will help. But if you're interviewing, I don't want you to spend too much time. It's an 80-20. 20% of the time learning maybe Google ads, and 80% really doing that interview prep, especially depending on how much ads is a component of that role. I got a question about team matching. Okay. It appears there are a lot of candidates on this step that are in this step 2. Does that affect your application negatively? Okay. Does the 18 months limit in which you have to reapply start from the application or starting from the team matching process? Yeah, it's that timeline's like not super rigid. The system isn't going to shut you out because of that, or I haven't heard that, or I never experienced that. Again, I've been gone for a while, but I wouldn't worry too much about that timeline. And hey, look, the team match is a stage that a lot of people fall into. That's a imperfect process that they should be drawing a line in the sand and be closing out all applications within 90 days of the team match phase, and then with the opportunity to revisit you. But just having you linger and hang out for 6 months or 9 months or 14 months or whatever it might be, it's not a great candidate experience. They need to fix that years ago. But there isn't a ton of rigidity around like you didn't get the job, or like the team match didn't work out and you have to wait X amount of time to reapply. Usually it's the 6 to 12 months, but it doesn't have a rigid line in the sand. Hey, Jeff, I'm between post-interview and pre-packet. The recruiter asked for more salary info expectations in a spreadsheet. I don't know the level, SWE L3 or L4 or City yet. Any advice on how to approach this? Yeah, so when they ask for more information, you just leave that blank. That's the pre-work before HC, which I would imagine you're going to HC. And if they ever came back and said, whoa, you left that blank, like I need more information, you could simply say, I'm happy to provide my salary expectations once the level has been confirmed. Because L3 to L4, depending on the city, that could be easily 100K or more, right? Like, so an L3 suite all in package year one, hey, if you're in the Bay Area, that could be up to like 250K, but an L4 might be 350K in year one, right? So it's a big swing. So providing your expectations when you don't know the level, I never do it. I never recommend it, and leaving it blank will not stop the process. So it's always my recommendation. Let me know if you have more questions on that. I could use some more tips for a DC tech role related. Are there two technical, one GNL and one RR? I think that's supposed to be K within the entire process. Am I missing anything? Data center tech. I mean, DC tech roles are usually more like the classic three, which is RRK, GCA, and GNL. But again, I'll default to you. We figure this out through the recruiter because things are constantly changing, and I never want to make the assumption that my data is 100% right because things change all the time. So you definitely want to confirm that with the recruiter. You know, for a DC tech role, you got to know the ins and outs. You know, you got to know the racks and the cables and all that stuff. And I feel like when people go into the DC tech role, it is a pretty high success rate in the interviews, just from what I've seen. Because if you're going into that role, you know the ins and outs of a data center, and that's pretty common. But what I do see a lot of is they'll test you in these roles like, how would you problem solve X issue if you didn't have internet? Or how would you solve Y problem if you had no stakeholders to help you? Or they're going to put you in tough scenarios in those interviews, and you just need to think creatively. And of course, that DC tech knowledge will come in really, really helpful. I hope that answers your question, but let me know if you have more questions. You are welcome. All right, Nick, I have marketing experience, completed multiple Google ad certifications, research, YouTube and Reddit for real life examples, insights / my question is more how to talk about this during the interview. Okay, well, when you're trying to answer any interview question, right, like our behavioral examples are our behavioral examples. I think sometimes it seems like people are or feel a need to try and kind of push specific types of behavioral answers into the interviews. Our experience is what it is. Of course, we want to be thinking about how it fits the question, the role. That's all good. But when we go to the hypothetical side, this is where you are going to insert some of this knowledge and intertwine some of this knowledge throughout your answer. So what does that mean? What the heck am I talking about? Well, if you have some of this experience, that might come up in your clarifying questions. Like, let's take Google Ads, for example. Well, maybe we're asking as a clarifying question, well, are we focused on more search ads or YouTube ads? So again, it's not really specific, but it's enough to show we maybe have a little bit of experience. If you're familiar with the ad space, sometimes ads are to build a brand, to make revenues, or both. So again, that can come in your clarifying part. Now, understanding this setup can really help you build out strong frameworks. Absolutely, it can help with building strong assumptions, and then you can interweave this experience into your solutions when problem solving. So really think about this knowledge and expertise as being really powerful and impactful when answering hypothetical questions, and weave it in, not force though. It's got to make sense for the question, and then you can use follow-up questions to maybe drive towards more of the information and data that you know. Feels a little high level giving you feedback like that, so let me know if you have any additional questions, please. The rate of big tech layoffs seems to be increasing rapidly. Do you have a read on how long it will take to find a new job as an individual contributor? Would it be even longer for remote positions? All right, Edward, all great questions. I think we'll continue to see tech layoffs. I just think that the market conditions and automation and AI and just a combination of everything that we're seeing, I don't think we'll see this changing. I think you're going to continue to see tech layoffs. We're already at over 550,000 people who have been laid off just in the tech industry since 2022. And really, that was more middle of 2022. So we're all talking like really basically a little over 2 years, 550,000 people. I think that will continue. How long is it taking as an individual contributor? I think in the past, we used to really look in that like 0 to 3 month range. I think then it was maybe pushing 3 to 6 months. I think 6 months to a year is reasonable. I know it sounds like a long period of time, and some people can't hang out that long. You just don't have the money to live, so it's going to force some. It's going to force us to prep harder, work harder. I still believe, and again, this is a sidebar, but I just still believe that people are not preparing enough for their interviews. Okay, it's such a limited amount of time to have a huge change in our lives. So I want people to prep as much as possible. That's obviously a lot of what I do on the content. Now, for remote positions, I would just say you got to do what's best for you personally, for your family, anybody who would be impacted by a move. And I always have the sneaky trick of, hey, if it doesn't say remote, maybe if it's our ideal role or something we really want, we still interview for it and then see at the end when we're the preferred candidate if they will allow us to go remote or work with an interesting setup. Sometimes, depending on the city, I've even recommended people, if it's like a hybrid environment, you fly in early that morning, you work a full day, you stay at a hotel at night, you work the next full day, and you fly home the next evening. Hey, for the comp, sometimes those scenarios make sense if we only need to be in the office a couple days. Is it a total pain? Absolutely. But I think we just always need to think, how creative can we get in today's job landscape? And it's going to take that now and moving forward. Now, of course, that would have to be a pretty high paying job. But a lot of the tech jobs are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can use a company like Southwest where you can pre-book and move all your flights around and you can actually make it work. And I've seen people do that. But yeah, I know that would be challenging. I hope that answers your question. What's HC? Hiring committee. Gotcha. I love it when people answer the questions for me. Thank you. Hiring committee is essentially almost all jobs that you have to go through at Google will get to the hiring committee phase. Not all of them. Some, they just got rid of it. But hiring committee is basically a group of your peers who are going to look at your interview feedback, who do not interview you, are not the hiring manager, and determine whether you're a fit for the overall organization now and for the future. It's another hiring bar, and it makes it tougher to get in. I have another question. How does relocation support work? I might need their help. So at the very low levels, they're going to take a look at what you need and give you a lump sum. And then as you go up levels, they're going to work with you to basically give you allocated resources. So this is kind of, let's just talk generically about big tech companies. All of them have third-party relo companies. And basically they'll say, okay, what do you care about the most? Temporary housing, helping pay for moving costs, anything else that might be related to a relo. But if you actually have to relocate for the job, especially the big companies will pay for that. But some of the smaller companies won't. Something you just want to double check on as you're going through the process, especially as you're getting later in the process and considering the role. Hey, Jeff, if in the interviewer directly starts asking questions, do we need to introduce ourselves or we don't need to? Great question. You absolutely do not take a step back. I would go with their agenda. Now, again, not everybody's going to love this advice, but what's the reality? That's what I would do. If I was going to interview you at Google, for example, the joke, and I always kind of smile for this, I don't think anybody would be surprised that the vast majority of interviews I did were GCA interviews. I don't think that would surprise anybody. So here's how I'd warm into the interview. I'd say, Hey, Jane, it's really nice to meet you. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to ask you a really hard question, and I'm here to help. I'm here to support you. I want you to do well. It's a tough question. So if you have questions, you need anything from me, just ask. Okay. And then I'd say, all right, let's breathe. And then I'd say, all right, let's jump in. So basically, that was my agenda. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? I didn't care. I assumed that the recruiter took those steps and that I was there to interview them. I was obviously, as a recruiter, interviewing recruiters, but I assumed that all the due diligence had been done on the front. I didn't need time to warm up. I was more interested in how they answered the questions. And so that was my agenda. So if you take away from my agenda and you say, hey, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, instantly I'd probably fail you. Now, remember, I was a really tough interviewer, but if you take a step back and don't directly answer my question and decide that it's more important to tell me about yourself, you may run into somebody who's really rigid like me and has an agenda. So somebody who jumps in just wants to get down to business. Great. I'd rather not answer those fluffy questions. I'd rather just get into it, show them why I'm a fit, and it means they're no nonsense in all business. There's so much to understand about interviewing. And like one of the conversations I sometimes have with clients is some people are completionists, right? So what does that actually mean? That's somebody who, the best example I know how to give, the best analogy is that's somebody who starts a movie and needs to finish it. No matter how bad the movie is, maybe if it's taking them an hour past their bedtime, they need to finish that movie. That's not me. I can watch 5 minutes of a movie and say, hey, I'll finish it 3 other times and walk away from it. No problem. But the completionist may come into an interview, let's say with 7 interview questions, and they have to get those completed. If we don't allow them to complete that process, that can reflect negatively on us. I know this was a total tangent, but I'll always want to follow the agenda of my interviewer because they're going to like me more if I'm matching their agenda. I know it's a lot. I hope it helps. You have a job location issue. Okay. Applied for a hybrid role with the option to select an on-site hub city, all out of state. Just completed the Microsoft, MSFT is Microsoft loop, but I'm unable to relocate due to a family illness. Oh, Daphne, sorry to hear this. How do I approach this if selected? You're very transparent with them, right? I would just tell them what's going on. What I don't want you to do is introduce it yet because I want you to be the preferred hire for them. When you're the preferred hire, when they think that you're the candidate who's going to come and work for them and do all the great work, they get emotionally attached to you. And that's what I want, that emotional attachment. I'm really sorry to hear that you can't relocate, but let's play out this process, see how it goes, and then tackle it from there. I think that's all I got there. Just keep us updated. Let me know how I can help. I'm obviously here to help. You're welcome. Can we apply to a different role while we're still in the interview process of one role for Google? I do not recommend it. It really is. I want to take a step back and just kind of talk about why, right? In my opinion, it's not sending the right message. It's telling me you're not really serious about the role you're interviewing for. You're maybe kind of interested. Now, if that is the case, and you've been put in front of a role that you're really not that excited about, you want to talk to your recruiter about it and say, hey, I found a role that seems more aligned. Can we dual track? Dual track means you go after 2 roles at the same time. And this is really easy for any big company, especially. They're going to have their general interviews. So like you'll have your general GNL, Googliness and Leadership interview, which could be repurposed for multiple roles, even potentially your GCA, which will have a little bit of role specificity. But if the roles are close enough, you can repurpose interviews for both roles, and then maybe you just have to do a role related knowledge interview, and then they can kind of take a look at the 2 roles. You can always have a conversation with your recruiter, but just blindly applying, no, sorry, that's the wrong word. Just applying to other roles while you're in the interview process, to me, if I saw that, I'd flag it and I'd say, what's going on? Like, why are you doing this? Like, you're in the interview process. Are you serious about my job? I have other candidates that are very serious. I can just remove you from the process. And even though I probably wouldn't, I might use those words or tone with you. So just really, really important to know that I'm against it. And if you do want to take that path, have the conversation with your recruiter and use something at any of these big companies. Say, do you ever dual track? Dual track. That's the terminology you're going to want to use. All right, we're at the 30s. 30 seconds to highlight my services. If you are here today, right now, which you are, which is silly, use the coupon code or promo code TECH. That will get you 20% off of our AI tool or interview mastery course today. I'm obviously still doing one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new long-form original content every Monday. And then I'm trying to throw more short-form content out there, which hopefully you've seen and you like. If you haven't done so yet, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Okay, let's get right back into it. Any tips for those who really can't get anyone to help prep for the interview? Any alternatives? I got one. The AI tool. I just want to, again, the goal of these live sessions is to help the community, not pitch my services. But at this price point, at this discount, like, it's a very, very low risk. And by the way, that tool sounds exactly like me. It's the joke with all my clients. And you've heard me probably say this before, they say it sounds exactly like you. I built it that way, right? So I would say try that out. And by the way, it's a free trial. So even if you don't like it, you're not committed. It's a $0 $0 to get in there. So I would recommend at least trying an AI tool like mine to get you prepping if you can't find people to prep with you. I hope that helps. Question: my last company job title is content review associate, but in my resume I mentioned senior content reviewer by mistake. I think not. I think it's now. I'm interviewing at Google. Should I tell them about this, or is it okay? Yeah, don't worry about it now. What really matters is what goes on your application. So your resume and application shouldn't always match. What did I do? I did a short on this like a couple weeks ago, or within the last, maybe it was last week. Basically, like, your resume title and the title that the company gave you do not have to match, because companies give ridiculous titles that don't make any sense. Just when you get to that final stage and they want to make you the offer, say, hey, I just want to make an update on my application. The title should actually say X, and that's it. So nothing to worry about at the current moment. And good luck. What's your view on ghost openings on LinkedIn and company website? I have years of cybersecurity experience, but getting rejected by ATS or job getting reposted even though I'm a fit. Okay, let's go to the second one. What should I be thinking about doing differently? Not even getting a call from a recruiter is painful, even via referral, same result. Even tried networking via hiring manager as you recommended. Okay, so the ghost job openings, I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes that's a little bit of clickbait. Like, people are always talking about these ghost job openings. I just can't speak to it. I don't really know. Are there ghost job openings out there? There's got to be, right? Of course. But are the percentages as high as people say? Like 50% of all the jobs aren't real jobs. Well, I don't think that that's the case, or if it was, that would be really, really sad. I think what happens a lot of times is the people behind the scenes who are doing the work are not doing it appropriately. Meaning, they're posting the job, they're pulling it down, they're putting it back up. They have a candidate in the final stage, but they want to see if they get anything else. And they're doing these things that are probably not on the up and up, and they should have a real system and process in place. But there will always be ghost job openings. Getting rejected by the ATS. So let's go back to Let's go back to your second comment. So like you still need to push the referral thing. So you're getting referrals. Great. They're not always going to yield results. So we lean into the people who are going to help us the most. And sometimes, a lot of times that means we just have to be annoying and persistent. Like I'll give you a quick example. I mean, I've been trying to close a B2B deal with my AI tool with my college, and I have been with where I went to college, and I have been persistent, just pushing to probably a really uncomfortable place. That's what we want to do with our referrers, especially the people we really know. And then, of course, the bribes, chocolate, wine, coffee. I think just anything that people enjoy is a great way to say thank you so much for your support. It's a bribe, but they're our friends, right? Like it's not really a bribe, it's a joke. But we want to really push those referrers to help us. And it's great that you tried networking with a hiring manager as I recommended, but you should be trying to network with hundreds of hiring managers. And that's hard. I know that that's really, really hard. First of all, it's hard to identify if they're even a hiring manager. We don't know if they're hiring for that role. So how do we get around that? Well, when we network on LinkedIn, just make sure you're trying to network with people who are actually active on LinkedIn. If they have no activity, if they have a real shell profile, they're not on LinkedIn, they're not using it, they're not getting the updates. It's not a good path. The other one that I recommend, hey, if you have a little bit of money and you're willing to spend the money, I mean, I use a tool called Contact Out, and they don't pay me to mention it, but Contact Out is a little plug-in for your LinkedIn, and it gives me people's email addresses and phone numbers so I can email them or call them if I want to reach out to them. I think it's like $100 a month for 100 contacts or something like that. It's relatively reasonable. So another recommendation. I really hope that helps. Hey, Sunil, thanks so much for being here. Hey, Jeff, interview on Thursday for an account strategist role. Ooh, pretty familiar with this one. Seen all your videos. Do all of my hypothetical questions need CFAS frameworks, i.e. prioritization questions? Yeah, I mean, I would use the CFAS method for all hypothetical questions. If you choose not to use a method, again, this is like the nicest way I can say it. If we choose not to use a method in answering interview questions, we're choosing to go rogue and choosing to take a less predictable path, which in a job interview, when stress and anxiety hit, having a method to follow keeps us within the lines, which is really good. And then we can play around. Once we get into the solutioning, we create some back and forth. That's the real goal. The goal is that when we create this back and forth, we're creating really good engagement with our interviewer. But yes, you should be focusing in on these items. And for any account strategist role, right? Like we're thinking about ad type and the client and the strategy and branding and awareness and all these things. And prioritization obviously is a big one for account strategists because they're more entry-level roles where prioritization is going to be a key, especially with your client base, with doing internal work, et cetera. So yes, please let me know if you have additional questions. I have a subscription to practice interviews, but I never received a newsletter regarding the 7-day prep. Where can I find this? Hey, Nick. Yeah, I want it to be, I think I scheduled it to come out at 11 a.m. Today. I just wanted to give people some space and time for anybody watching in the U.S. Obviously, but if anybody wasn't in the U.S., we had a national holiday, Labor Day, yesterday. So I think it's going out at 11 a.m. I think that's when I scheduled it, just because, again, I wanted people to get into the office in the U.S. or hop on their computers, have time to breathe, get all those emails, especially a lot of people will take that Friday off or half day Friday. So it should be coming out in the next hour and 20 minutes. Hey, Jeff, you're doing great work. I have a TPM interview tomorrow. Any last moment tips? Yeah, I mean, again, for a TPM role, I would just really think a lot about utilizing that program manager framework. Like, What do program managers and technical program managers do? Well, their foundation is always goals and objectives. They don't tend to move forward without looking at the data, specifically all types of data, including historical data. Then three critical ones. You're always looking at budget, timeline, and how you're resourced, right? And then you're thinking about, in correlation with those three items, well, what are the risks? And then you're thinking about scope and scale, stakeholders, shared vision, requirements, all those good things. Like, just consistently talk about those items. That's program management. And even we could go into prioritization, those sorts of things. Like, those are all going to be critical things. If you're talking about those items constantly, it's going to be great. And then, of course, leadership without authority. That's every program manager. So how do you get stuff done working with others and through others? I hope that helps. I know it's pretty high level. Hey, Jeff, currently work as a transport planner. Okay. The job involves skills like data analysis, modeling, project management, and client facing. Job is also very stable. Okay. Because the job isn't paying as much as I'd like to consider moving to a higher paying industry. However, I'm concerned that with AI, I'm risking moving to jobs that will be redundant very soon. In your opinion, should I make the move anyway? Well, here's what I really like. I like the project management and client facing stuff. Yeah, we can automate some of the program project management stuff through tools. But project program management and client facing, a lot of the people, the moving pieces within people, um, those jobs aren't going to go away for a long time. We got at least 10 years on those jobs, 5 to 10 years. So anything like program management sounds good, or even like a business analyst, because analytical roles, we think, oh, well, you can automate out all the analytical work, but like a business analyst needs to talk to the people to understand the concerns and then problem solve. So those would be a couple of recommended roles. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. Okay, let's just pause. Thank you for this. Yesterday, I followed your guidance on the background banner in LinkedIn, and today I got some hits. Thank you. Please, if you are on this live session, 3, 5, 7, 10, 50, 100 people who are open to work. Please share that LinkedIn video I did yesterday. It will help them. And so what are we talking about? In our LinkedIn banner, when we're open to work, we call out the positions that we actually want to get hired for. Why? Because people are lazy. They're not going to scroll past the top of your page. So if at the top of your page you say interested in back-end software engineer jobs, skill set, Python, here's my contact info. Contact info is optional. And then check out my resume in the about section below. Just that's enough to get more hits. I posted this on LinkedIn yesterday. I know it was Labor Day, but I still posted the video and I asked people to like, hey, tag your friend who's open to work. 0 tags. I mean, I will tell you, everybody I've given these tips to, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. Everybody who I've given the tips to on LinkedIn who's open to work, when they've implemented these tips, like this LinkedIn user, it's just showing up as LinkedIn user, it's helped them. 100% of the feedback I've gotten, remember, I don't get a ton of feedback on it, but the 20 or 30 people I've heard who have implemented this have all had higher success rates. 100%. If you're open to work, please watch that video. It's a 15-minute video, but it will absolutely help. And please share it with anybody who could use it, because I know there are people who could use it. Also, thank you for your answer to the Google Ads question. It was perfect and helpful. I was just nervous about being asked, what is your experience working with Google Ads, since I don't outside any of my research. And Nick, that's okay. They say, well, what do you know about Google Ads? You could say, this was awesome because I really had this great opportunity to dive in and really check it out. And like, I've learned a ton, and I'm happy to chat about any of these areas. But I've never really used it hands-on, and I'm really excited. I'm happy to talk to you about times that I have been hands-on with ads, but it's been more with Amazon ads, or it's been more in this space. And you can just talk through that. You can always say, I'm excited to talk about what I've learned, and I'm excited to talk about how I've applied my ad knowledge in other spaces as well. So a couple of good opportunities. Let me know if you have more questions. I'm scheduling my interview dates. Do interview dates affect my chance? Specifically, if I've taken 2 weeks, what is the max time I can take? Fantastic question. I go right back to my recruiter. Recruiters are going to be transparent with you. It doesn't benefit them not to be. So I would just say to my recruiter, Jane, hey, Jane, I really need a little extra time to prep. If I took an additional week when scheduling out these interviews, is that going to put the job at risk for me? Do you have 5 or 10 candidates? Because sometimes the answer is yeah. We got a lot of candidates in process, so you really got to get in sooner. Or you know what? We're just getting started. Take your time. It's not going to impact it. I always go to my point of contact, whether it's the recruiter or hiring manager, and ask them. I hope that helps. Yeah, Edward, thanks for being here. Jeff being tough, I never would have imagined. Yeah, my interviews, obviously, as an interviewer, you should come in with the balance. I think of being tough and rigid and having a very clear mindset and having the awareness that you're tough. And that's something that I really needed to do. Like this is going to sound crazy, but in all the interviews I did at Google, and I did quite a few, I think if I was really considering hiring people, I probably would have leaned towards hiring nobody. That's how tough I was. I know that that's crazy. And I think I approved, I can remember 5. I think I gave the approval on 5 people, and all those people who I gave the approval on all got hired and ended up at Google. So I was really tough. Yeah. But I had the awareness that I was tough, and I always tried to build in that flexibility and just create the candidate experience. People get stuck. And so if you're ever interviewing and somebody's just losing it and they're stuck, you just say, all right, Bob, let's pause. My goal today is to support you, make sure that you do a good job. Let's just take a moment, just breathe. Interviews are tough. Like, you're here for a reason. Like, I believe in you. You got this. Like, let's just take a moment, breathe, take a sip of water, and then let's come back to it. Like, bringing in that real human element is really important in the job interviews. And so while I was tough, I brought that in. And again, I don't know how much that helped, but I tried to bring it in. Thanks, Daphne. Tricky situation. Keep us posted, please. I'm worried that lots of people on the TM process means recruiters are overloaded the positions, and that means they're less likely chance that I get the position. Have you seen this happen at Google? Yeah, I mean, I think that I know. Recruiters and team match is all about momentum. So when you first get into the team match stage, the recruiter is still excited about your candidacy. So they're going to try and get you in front of as many team match scenarios, situations, these conversations as possible. But when there's 2 or 3 that don't go well, and then it's been a month or 2 months or 3 months, it's just the natural human behavior. They're going to go for the next shiny new object, which is the new candidate who hasn't been in any team matches, and maybe they're going to have better success in the team match phase. So once it gets to be a few months, I'm not saying that people don't get team matched after that, but the percentages go down over time because they lose interest. And they're unorganized in general. Like, I would have a list of everybody in the team match, their skills, be looking for that alignment. That would be a part of my daily work because those people are closest to the close. But a lot of times recruiters just aren't working that way. Yeah. Given up looking on LinkedIn. I'm only going through my network. That includes Fang. Yeah, Victor. Okay, so let's talk about this. I don't want you to, okay. Maybe you need to take a break, right, from trying to network on LinkedIn. And trust me, I think people might see the following I have and the engagement on LinkedIn. I don't think anybody gets as frustrated with LinkedIn as I do. I spend so much time on there, and sometimes the ROI is terrible. Like, we all know the UI, the UX on LinkedIn is really poor. considering they were purchased for 26 billion. I mean, it blows my mind, all the things that are still broken on that site. So yeah, it's kind of crazy and can be a frustrating experience. What I will say is definitely make sure that you are still constantly optimizing your LinkedIn profile to be found. But if you want to shut down the networking and you just need a break from networking on LinkedIn, I get it. But yeah, you should absolutely be going through your network and getting them to refer you. That's always the preferred path. Warm leads are always the best. Cold leads, you're an unknown. You're trying to prove something to them. I am trying to prove something to the people who are in this live session now. A lot of people in this live session know me, have been here before, but some don't. Some it's maybe their first time, and I'm trying to get that street cred and prove that I deserve your time and this audience. So yeah, I get it. I understand. And I would just say, if you want to take a break, just make sure your LinkedIn profile is optimized so people are finding you. As a freshman at an engineering college, is it reasonable to pursue a career in software development? Will I be replaced by AI, or should I look into other fields? If so, could you recommend any? Wow, this is a super tricky question. And what I'll tell you is I have some concerns for more junior level developers and engineers, just in the sense that AI can write really good code right now. And so I do see more of a senior developer trend moving forward. I would just say take all the courses you can on AI, ML, anything where you can get really niche down. I wouldn't say to find another major. I mean, my recommendation, honestly, is this is probably going to annoy a lot of people, but I would recommend not going to college at all right now. I mean, that's just, again, I do not want you to make life decisions based on this guidance, but I just don't think we need school anymore. I think we can learn everything through certifications and self-study and boot camps. And this is coming from somebody who was, any of my old friends would tell you, and I graduated college a long time ago. We won't talk about how long ago, but it's long. I used to be kind of like a college snob. I was like, oh, I got this degree. And now I know that it really, for the time it helped, but now I think we live in a different time. But I wouldn't just totally abandon software engineering. The world's always going to need engineers. And I would just spend a lot of time learning about AI eng, how you can incorporate that, how you can write better code through automation. That's what I would focus your time on. Because it's a really special skill set to be able to do, to be a developer, a coder. Like, a lot of us just don't have that in us, including myself. I just wouldn't have the patience for it. Hey, Jeff, if someone referred you, can you bring it up during any of the interviews? I don't recommend it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it just in the sense that it could feel forced, right? So I just don't want anything to feel forced. I always want to go with the agenda of our interviewer. So let's talk about it. I always this is such a great time to bring in a sports analogy because I love sports. And so I'm pretty obsessed with sports. I try to not watch too much because I want to stay productive. But lately it's been the US Open, the tennis. I love tennis. I love all sports, but I've been watching a lot of tennis. So if I love tennis, but you keep wanting to talk about football, which I also love, but you keep talking about football, but I keep bringing up tennis and you keep bringing up football, we're not going to be aligned, right? So I'm just kind of bringing something in when it's not something we're talking about. I know it feels a little off kilter, but we want to talk about tennis because that's what maybe our interviewer is talking about. So we want to just stick with their agenda. People like it when we talk about what they like. Again, that was a bit of a tangent. I hope that made sense, but no, I would answer direct questions. And then if it comes up naturally, bring it up. Jeff, in a pre-interview chat, recruiter mentioned discussing compensation in interview follow-up combo if selected. How do I prepare for the compensation talk just in case? Is this where negotiation comes in, or is that after the offer letter? Well, it depends on the company, but I never talk about compensation until they decide that they want to hire me, because then I have the power. And so I wait, I deflect. I'd like to learn more about the team, the role. I'd like to have level confirmed. Any of those items, just deflect, deflect, deflect. If at some point they say we will not move forward in the process without the comp, then that's another question that we can address. But at these big tech companies, especially, for example, yeah, they're not going to stop moving the process forward because you don't give them those expectations. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for the positive feedback. Hey, I'm not Jeff, but if you'd like my 2 cents for a SWE, do it if you're passionate. The area is not going anywhere soon, only going to get rougher, which is okay if you're in for it. Thank you so much for that. See, this is what I love. This is about community, right? And so as you join these live sessions, and I'm sure if you're here, you have to be joining other people's live sessions too, which I strongly recommend, but it's a community feel. Like, it's not just about me answering the questions, it's about people giving their input, their feedback. And obviously we've built a super positive community where people are trying to help others, which I absolutely love. Hey, Jeff, I was a TVC and my contract ended recently. I would want to highlight a problem specific to Google. Okay, let's do it. I am not at all getting any calls from HR. Trust me, I am in the top tier for any roles I'm applying for. While digging in deep, I got to know my resume is not even being read by an HM. It's being rejected by random TVCs, which Google has hired to screen resumes. How do I go about this situation? I guess many might be facing this. So when you've been a TVC, and I'm sorry to hear your contract ended, you have a huge advantage over everybody else. I would be working your internal network that you built while you were there. And if you didn't build a strong one, you still have one. And so you lean into the people you worked with, who you liked. I mean, there shouldn't be any applying for jobs yet. You should just be doing reach outs. You should be networking and specifically leaning on the people you know. That's going to be the best way to do it. Lean, 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 and lean heavy, and make them understand, right? Bring in that awareness. Hey, like, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? I really just looking for a little bit of help. Bringing in that awareness can be really beneficial. Let me know if you have more questions, but I want you to lean into the people you worked with. Direct team, cross-functional. That's going to be your best way to get it. Hey, Jeff, graduated in May. Haven't had a good conversion rate on my job applications. Any recommendations on career platforms? You will never, I sometimes use these aggressive words because they're important, but you'll never have a high conversion rate on job applications. Statistically, less than 10% of people get jobs through applying online. So if you graduated in May, you have a bigger challenge because you don't have the same level of work experience as others. So maybe you have a 1% success rate or a 2% success rate in hearing back after a job application. That's pretty common. So networking, we talk a lot about networking in these live sessions, but you want to start to look at, well, where have your classmates landed, right? Not only classmates from your current graduating class, but maybe classmates from the previous year who have now landed jobs. Network with them, talk to them. Hey, we both graduated. I don't know if you remember me, but I could really use some help here. Like, if we're just applying to jobs, we may never get a job. I think that that's a reality that I just want people to understand. It's because of things like Easy Apply, and now there's all these third-party tools that will apply to jobs for you. Like, these companies, if they got 1,000 applications before, they get 5,000 now. Much, much tougher, right? So, yeah, it's going to be tricky. Let me know if you have more questions. FSDF. I don't know what that means. Regarding applying to 2 roles, I'm currently in the interview process for a role A. However, before was certain that I was in this process, I also happened to apply for role B. Will this be a flag? No, don't worry about that. You can, at many companies, you can apply to unlimited jobs or like up to 3 jobs or whatever the company might be, but like, no. And it's not like a huge flag if you apply to a job while you're in the interview process, but like, I was a pretty thorough and rigid recruiter, right? So I'd just be asking myself, like, what is this person doing? And I would absolutely, I'd call you out on it, but I'd follow up with you on it and try and understand the logic behind it. But no, don't worry about that. That's very, very common. We're at the 30s. I'm going to take 30 seconds to prompt on my services. If you're here today, coupon code, if you use the coupon code TECH, 20% off the AI tool and our interview mastery course. Getting great feedback on both. Still try out the AI practice interview app for free. We have a free trial, so you have no commitment. Trust me, you'll get a ton of benefit from it. Still doing one-on-one practice interviews, one-on-one negotiation sessions, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's LinkedIn and resume review. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday. New original content, long form every Monday, and I'm trying to do at least a couple shorts a week. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button, and if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, let's dive right back in. I think we're at Donald here. Hey, Jeff, interviewed for the account strategist role a few months ago and didn't receive an offer after going through 4 interviews. Okay, that's weird, 4. I just reapplied to the same position and got not proceeding in the careers portal without even an initial call. Does having a previous rejection in my file hurt my chances in future applications? My poorly positioned now because I didn't get it on my first attempt. How would you recommend I proceed? My recruiter wasn't much to share. Okay, well, it's been 3 months. So that's instantly going to be a stopping point. It's got to be 6, 9, 12 months for the same exact role. So if you went after a different role, different story, but for the same role, they're instantly going to reject you. Usually if you've interviewed once and you didn't do well, like I'm not going to take too much of that feedback into consideration. If you've interviewed multiple times and the feedback's always not good, I'm probably going to stop giving you chances. But that previous feedback can also play in your favor. Maybe it was really close, and I'm going to see that feedback and want to give you another chance, but you got to build a little bit more space and time. 3 months after a rejection is not enough time. If your recruiter didn't tell you that, they should have told you that. Do you have some suggestions for leveraging LinkedIn better? Of course I do. Looking for roles in analytics. I've been planning on posting Tableau dashboards, statistics, SQL tips, and marketing knowledge. Done. Optimize your profile. Step 1. Go to my go to my YouTube page, search. I have tons of LinkedIn videos on how to optimize your profile. You will not run out of content there. None of them are heavily watched, but I did one yesterday, and even those tips could be really helpful. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is absolutely post that stuff. Please post that stuff as much as you can. Like being active on LinkedIn it shows really good engagement, and the algorithm will reward you for that. So definitely make sure you're active. And if you're posting things like Tableau dashboards and SQL and those sorts of items, that's really going to help as well. So I definitely recommend that. Remember, LinkedIn and all these platforms, what do they reward? They reward activity. So it's a great thing, unless you're a creator like me. And then if you take a break, you lose momentum, right? But definitely recommend that. Let me know if you have more questions. Hey, Jeff. Oh, we got a lot of interviews for the account strategist role a few months ago and didn't receive an offer. Oh, I think this is the same. This is the same one. Okay, so this was the same one, Donald. Hopefully that answer before helped you. Did you ever hear of the coordination tax? Okay, no. My interview process stopped because of the coordination tax, living in Florida and having a home in New York, and the job being in New York. They want to be in territory. Have you heard of this before? I have no idea what this is. My interview process stopped because the coordination tax, living in Florida and having, my mind is blown. I don't even know how they would have access to you having multiple properties. Like, they shouldn't even have that information. That should be confidential information. If that's working against you, that you have like properties in multiple locations, that sounds like a lawsuit to me. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know anything about this. So yeah, come back to me and let me know if you have more questions. Sorry, I've never heard of this. I'm really curious to look it up though. All right, I'm interviewing for a sales architect role for a SaaS company where the hiring manager has not had a one-to-one with me yet. They were part of the panel round though. This is common. They were part of company where the hiring manager has not had a one-on-one. They were part of a panel. Okay. Actually, and then let's just go to the second part. Tech screen by principal architect, round 2, panel, round with 5 architects and hiring manager, round 3. Yeah, so I think it's really important that if they decide you're a fit, that you request, and the hiring manager doesn't request it, which would be weird, but not 100% uncommon, is you request through the recruiter or the hiring manager if they're your direct point of contact. I'd love to meet with you and have an informal half an hour chat. I do want interviewers to lead and guide. So like the fact that you're interviewing them, sure, of course, but with a hiring manager, we're definitely interviewing them. That relationship is critical, and we need to make sure that we have a conversation with them one-on-one before we decide to join the company. So if you get to that point where they want to hire you, definitely make sure you ask for that conversation. If the hiring manager refuses to have that conversation, that's a red flag and you should walk away. If a hiring manager doesn't want to talk with you one-on-one before hiring you, instant flag, and I would instantly look at other opportunities. Again, just my 2 cents. Thanks, Jeff. I was waiting for this session for my doubts. Okay, awesome. Yeah, Donald, was it you who answered? Okay. I hope that answers your question, but please let me know if it didn't get answered. StreamYard is the third-party tool, so your question shouldn't get skipped, and we covered your question, but please come back and let me know. I should be going in order and hopefully catching everything. Hey, Jeff, been stuck at the GT match pre-HC. It's been 2 weeks since the last update from my recruiter. Any insights on L4 USA headcount? I T-matched pre-on-site, but it got filled up. Yeah, overall, like the US hiring headcount, just in general, is pretty good right now. But, again, it would be really role specific, location specific. If it's been a couple weeks since you've heard from your recruiter, just check in. I think the proactive piece is something that I'm always going to lead and guide the audience to. Just be proactive. That's all you can do. Yes, I am a big Novak fan, and not that I wasn't a Federer fan or a Nadal fan, but a big Novak fan. I'm sad that he lost, but it's always fun to watch. Talent's unbelievable. Also, can I get a referral while I'm in the T-match phase? I cold applied and came this far, but I have many ex-colleagues who can refer me. Always, let's pause for 1 second. I want you to be 100% sure that those people are going to say great things about you. 100%. If you have a 1% doubt, no. But if there's 3 people, 100% chance they're going to say great things about you, you can always share those with your recruiter and say, hey, I have a few internal referrals. Maybe that will strengthen my packet. What do you think? I know these 3 people, Sue, Jane, and Bob. Can you ask them for internal referrals? Internal referrals can help you a little bit. And if they say anything negative, you're done. So it's just something to keep in mind. And the recruiter will never tell you why, right? So just something to note. Can you ask the level before the interview? with your recruiter or your point of contact, absolutely. Uh, and a lot of times, like at these big tech companies, they won't tell you the level because they don't know if you're an L4 or an L5. So if they're like, we can't tell you level, can I just confirm that I'm being targeted for like the L4, L5 range, which usually they will confirm. Level is typically confirmed at the very end of the process. For any companies that have levels, that's usually a big company, and they usually confirm that at the end. But you can always ask. Oh, this is a great question. Hey Jeff, what's your must-haves for one-on-one meetings with the manager? As I reflected back on my one-to-ones in my time at Google, especially at the end when I was burnout, frustrated, did not have the ideal relationship with my lead. I didn't handle my one-on-ones well. And so I've had a lot of time to reflect on my one-to-ones. And so I would definitely come with 2 items to all one-to-ones. One, I'm always looking in my one-to-ones at my quarterly goals. So how am I driving towards those quarterly, biannual, or annual goals that I set? And how are my activities tracking back to those goals? And have those goals moved or changed? That's one. So if we're always going back to the bigger picture and what the target is, we're going to have more success in the day-to-day. Then I want to focus in on any roadblocks or barriers that my hiring manager can remove for me. And then just talk about like what's going on, what's happening, what I should be working on, etc. But goals first. What are the larger goals and how are you tracking towards those larger goals? What are the roadblocks? And then anything else that's important, but always come in organized with a plan and be ready to discuss those items that will get better engagement from your lead. Thank you for your suggestions. How do I explain such a large change from transportation to other industries, especially when my education and experiences are all aligned to my current industry? Change from transportation. Well, you can talk about, if you're asked, well, why did you change industries? You can talk about passion and excitement for both. I've always loved the transportation industry and just been really intrigued with X, Y, and Z. And I've also had a strong passion for X. And so when speaking about this role, I always want to highlight I have a lot of different interests, and this is just one of them. And I'm happy to talk about any of my passions in this area. So just really treat it like a super positive thing, and that will go well. Yep, we can. Hey, Jeff, going to hiring committee today with a match team for an L4 SWE, but I had one mixed interview. What are the chances of getting rejected? Same answer as always to this question. I can't answer that question. I just don't know. I don't have the feedback. I can't see it. I just will tell you that what goes to HC is collective feedback. So one mixed interview, not a big deal. And like this idea that everybody who passes HC has like strong hires and they just crushed all the interviews, that was rarely the case. Usually there was always one interview that didn't go perfect, and that's because humans are imperfect, and that's just the world. So don't be too concerned about that, but I can't give you percentages, unfortunately. All I can say is good luck. Let us know how it goes. Jeff, is it possible to give a little detail about how your negotiation consulting goes? Absolutely. It's very straightforward. White glove. So it means we meet as many times as possible, but we just meet once just to get the role, the position. I always come in with data and analytics. So I come in with a comp model of what I think their initial offer is going to be, what the target number is going to be, and then what we're setting the anchor, and then we script it. And then we deal with the back and forth as it comes in. And again, it's white glove, so people can text, call, email me. People leave money on the table, and it's hard to convince people that the negotiation stuff is worth it. But I know that I've worked with clients doing the interview stuff, and they've decided for whatever reason not to do the negotiation stuff. And I know that they've left. I know that the people who have said no have left millions of dollars on the table, and that's just part of it, right? It's loss aversion. People are more worried about losing money than making money. And this is just an emotional human thing. But the reality is that at these big tech companies or at any company, like you want to get to a rigid no, like where they absolutely won't move. Because if you don't hear that, it means you left money on the table, basically. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. Thanks for being here, Nick. There's some fields where having formal education is good to have. There are many difficult fields that create the innovations we take for granted. Someone had to do the hard work. Okay. I mean, again, I'm not knocking formal education. I have one. But I would say we live in a world where it's not necessary. That's just, again, my opinion. I don't think we need formal education. I don't recommend it to anybody. I think the money we invest in education could be reinvested into other things. But it's just a personal opinion. Hey, Jeff, greetings from Taiwan. Hey, thanks for being here, especially at your time. Many thanks for the informative videos, which did support me and got the offer successfully. Very helpful indeed. Wow, thank you so much for showing up and letting us know, especially given the current time. Really, really appreciate it. Congrats, and just wish you the best of luck. And I love seeing these messages. That's one of the best parts of these live sessions. Thank you. To continue on my message about posting on LinkedIn content, I stop myself because it feels I'm not providing enough value. The posts aren't very advanced in their content and knowledge. Any thoughts? Post. Just do it. Look, if one person gets value out of it, it's valuable. So just post. And I think that I have this conversation a lot. I was hanging out with a friend. We spent the day hanging out on the beach yesterday and kind of chatting, and like, I could give you this person's background and you'd be blown away. Like, amazing, amazing background. And I told them the same thing all day yesterday. They want to post content in a certain space. And I just said, just post it. When I post on LinkedIn, it's just being driven by my thought in the moment. And it's usually not well crafted. It's just like, I got to get that out there, and I just throw it out there. And sometimes it's imperfect, and I realize there's spelling errors and there's like all this stuff. But I'm just trying to post what I think in the moment would provide value for at least one person. So I guarantee that it's providing value. And yeah, like, you have to get a pretty big audience on LinkedIn to get like a lot of impressions. And impressions aren't even views. Impressions just means it showed up in people's feed. Doesn't even mean they looked at it or read it. But just do it. Just get it out there. Don't worry too much about it. Content. People overthink content. Like, again, and to anybody who's here, and I know it's a tangent, but to anybody who's here and like considering doing YouTube, I've never had a single video professionally edited. I know, big shocker, right? But look, I don't think you need it. I don't think it needs professional editing. I don't think the background needs to be perfect. I don't think you need all these emojis and all this other stuff. You're just trying to get valuable information out there. So I'd say to anybody who wants to produce content, just ship, ship, ship. And the more you ship, the more people will like it, the more of a following you'll get. And hey, sometimes people don't watch. That's a lot of my content. So occasionally people do, and that's great. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but I hope it helps. Hey, Jeff, does a Google recruiter look into the other roles you have applied to and interviewed for, or solely focus on the specific role they're looking to fill? I'm going to look at all that stuff. Any background information you have is going to be valuable for me to know. So I'm going to look at everything. Let's go to the second piece, and then we'll go back. What happens if you're already actively interviewing for another role at Google? Will the recruiter be inclined to bring you into a new interview cycle for another role? Probably not. It would really depend on a specific scenario basis. But if they got you into the interview process for one role, they're probably going to be focused on that one role. Hey, Jeff, I got a call from the HM last week and left a voicemail. I followed up on Friday afternoon, still no call back. Should I just think it's due to the holiday weekend? Probably just the holiday weekend. I just follow up with people with graciousness and kindness, and I will kill them with kindness. Hope you're doing great. Checking in, following up. And again, this would not be driven like towards a sales driven piece, but like following up on a position. Yeah. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great long weekend. Just checking in, just following up. Hope all is well. Positive, positive, positive. Check in, positive, check in, positive. And then if you do that for a month or two and you don't hear back, then it's probably time to move on. But I'm going to kill them with kindness so that they see it and feel it. This is a little bit, this is a tactic, right? So the tactic is, you're not going to get back to me. You're going to feel the pain of my graciousness and kindness. Where I follow up, I never get upset or angry. I just follow up with graciousness and kindness because I can build in that space and breathe. And I'm nice, 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 nice. And they just have to keep ignoring me being nice. Why does that work? It just means they're more likely to follow up with you, even if it's not the answer you want. It's a recommendation. Just want to say thanks for your content. Thank you for the nice comment. Really appreciated the video about what to expect as a recruiter interviewing for a recruiter position. Okay, I'm glad you found that video. Not much content for recruiters seeking recruiter roles. Very helpful. Awesome. And share it with any recruiters you know who may be looking for work. And if you think it's helpful for them, as long as they're not competing for those same roles as you, please do. I think the one thing, well, I know the one item I noticed a lot when I interviewed recruiters was they thought they could talk in circles and that I would be more likely to hire them, when it just made it a lot worse. Recruiters need to get past the noise and get into the numbers, the how. It's something that recruiters sometimes struggle with in interviews. Hey, Jeff, can you explain L1, L2? Is this based on experience? Since I'm new to the role I'm interviewing for, can I request L1? I mean, I can tell you at like a Google, like if you're external, like if you're like external interviewing for an entry-level role, that's going to start at L3. So maybe a little bit more context would be helpful. Congratulations. Oh, we're giving past congrats. Awesome. Congrats. Love the positivity. But Amir, I'm going to have you come back and ask additional questions, like what is the level, like what's your level of education, etc. Remote roles seem to be declining at a steep rate for FAANG companies. Steep. We're pretty much at the point now where it's hybrid. Again, this is hiring manager specific. A hiring manager can get creative if they want, but just absolutely something to note that, yeah, we're just seeing we're seeing less of it. The remote roles in big tech are disappearing pretty quickly. And so I wouldn't count on them, unfortunately, which is going to be more challenging for people. All right, Liz, you have a question about posting to LinkedIn. For context, I found an online course that takes 100 days and it's role related. There are 2 roles. Show up each day. You post each day. Okay. My question is this. If you're following me on LinkedIn, is this going to annoy you that I post each day which lesson I completed for the next 100 days? I mean, yeah, maybe, but I wouldn't not, well, I don't want to use a double negative here. Don't make that your stopping point, right? If you're going to post. Would love to know more about what this program is, but yeah, I mean, I would just post. I'm sure I annoy people on LinkedIn. I'm sure people get annoyed by my stuff, right? Because sometimes I can be tough. I'm trying to be tough in a really kind way, but sometimes it's taken incorrectly, or maybe my tone just in the moment wasn't necessarily where it needed to be. But no, I would continue to do that. I like posting every day. Well, I don't post every day. I wouldn't post on the weekends. I feel like it's pretty low engagement, but posting every day during the week. And by the way, there are things on LinkedIn that, like, one of the trends on LinkedIn that really bothers me in terms of posts is people who post a selfie with every single post. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add value at all. And so the people who post a selfie with every single post and post a lot, I'll unconnect from them. I can't see all the selfies. It's hard enough to be a content creator and have to look at yourself, but I don't understand all the selfies. I don't understand how they're driving or adding value. So I do get annoyed at some of the stuff, but I would say, this is such a tangent, but I would say don't worry about the people who are going to get annoyed. Just post and just make sure it's impactful and meaningful, and that's great. Thanks, Edward, for being here. Oh, it's related to the role, which I'm currently in the process. Okay, Liz. Interesting. I just say do it. Thank you for the words of encouragement. One last thing. I also get an impression my current content is more about showing my expertise and skills than providing value. Is that fine? I prefer value. I really do. Like if we're just highlighting why we're great, not my absolute favorite or preference. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. You previously mentioned negotiate at FANG because they do not rescind offers. Does that apply to Microsoft as well? It does apply to Microsoft. They're going to negotiate less with you from their first offer, meaning like maybe move the base a little bit. You can move the equity a little bit, but they're going to have a little less wiggle room. And Microsoft isn't the best paying of the FANG companies. I mean, obviously still in comparison to the world or other companies, it's great, but they're not the best paying of the tech companies. You will feel the pain of my kindness. Jeff is elevating to Yoda levels now. I love that. Yeah, I mean, again, I kill people with kindness, and sometimes people think that's toxic positivity, but I'd rather have a positive lens than a negative one. And I mean, I could get into even the current standing of my business compared to 2 years ago and where I'm sitting today. It's a very, very different landscape and much, much tougher. And I could focus in on all the negative stuff or look at all the opportunities that still exist. Yeah, so I love that comment. Atlas, there are people I follow on LinkedIn that do post every day, but the algorithm doesn't send me each of their daily posts every day, so I wouldn't worry about that. Great data point. Not everybody's going to see it, Liz. So that's another great data point. Let's go back to your PPS. I'm not just doing the 100-day course to help me get a new role. It's something I've always wanted to do. Learn Swift UI. Okay, Swift is great for mobile development. Okay, cool. Yes, and that feedback is very helpful. Like you're just not going to see everything everybody posts. That feed's really small. How many people are scrolling up and down the feed on LinkedIn? Not a lot. It's not like a TikTok or a Reels. We're not going to get captured in this amazing content flow on LinkedIn. The tool doesn't really have that kind of engagement, I don't believe. I've never engaged with it. Occasionally I'll scroll a tiny bit, but I won't really go very far. This Myers, I'd like to see a useful summary of each daily lesson so I don't have to take the course myself. I'd like to get into some info on Swift. Brad, thanks for that. That's helpful. Do referrals from employees who are early careers not matter as much? I've got some referrals, but they don't seem to help. They don't really help a ton. And you'd have to have somebody pretty high up the leadership chain to make an impact. So referrals, they're great for getting in the door, but what do they do for later in the process? Not quite as much, typically. Brad, love that. Be doing that for the course, full steam ahead. And here's what Brad's talking about. A useful summary is context, and the way we communicate with others is more successful when context is delivered. No context, no understanding. We're miscommunicating, we're disconnecting from others. And that's a big part of why I set up my interview coaching the way I do. Context on the behavioral answers comes in the situation and task. And are we creating a very simplistic but mutual understanding? And then context on the hypothetical side comes in the form of assumptions. Otherwise, we're talking about generic items. So context is a key way to communicate and have a more successful communication with others. And I won't have time for selfies, so no worries about that. Launching a second app and practicing for interviews. Yeah, and again, like I did a poll on LinkedIn whether people cared about the selfies or not. And like most people were like, I don't care. Again, it's just to me. I don't want to learn about Swift and then have a selfie of you, Liz. No offense, but it's not adding value. I'd rather have a picture of like what you are incorporating within Swift in that piece. And then it's like, oh, I can actually use that visual to benefit me. Right. So yeah, just my 2 cents. Referrals help because you can get friends to advocate with you for potential roles. It's a second set of eyes. Yeah, I mean, yes. It's just like in the process, like at Google, like did internal referrals ever make the difference in everybody I hired at Google? No, not a single one. Did they hurt? Yeah, there were a couple people who got negative references and I had to pull them from the process. So, but yeah, you want multiple people internally working for you. It doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of a written form. Jeff, your content has been a blessing. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. We just hit the 30s again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into my wrap up. Obviously, we had a great audience today. This is probably at its peak. It might have been the best audience all year, maybe. So really happy about that. I'm going to prompt on my services. I'm going to answer these couple comments. Anything else that comes in, I'll answer, and then we'll wrap up. Thanks, Daphne, for being here. Keep us posted, okay? Thanks for all the great ideas, gang. I was sort of dreading being out there, but I'm looking forward to Swift UI course and posting about it, and of course, the learnings in there. And I would say what may surprise this audience who's still here is I'm a really private person. I know that sounds weird because I do share a lot of personal details, and I'm obviously on camera a lot, but I really enjoy my privacy. And I don't really love a lot of times being a content creator because you're really putting yourself out there. But when you see it adding value to others and others benefiting from it, that's kind of enough. But like, I don't like seeing my face. I don't like doing the thumbnails and having to take the pictures and doing all that stuff. It's not that fun for me. But I do like producing content that helps others. So that keeps you going, Liz. That's great. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's go into our wrap up. And then, of course, any last minute questions that come in. Coupon code TECH, 20% off that AI tool. We introduced modular feedback 3 weeks ago. What does that mean? Your answers are going to get broken into small sections and make it less stressful and overwhelming. You can still do the free trial of our tool. You're not committed. The tool is fantastic. It's going to be the best in market. And well, I already think it's the best in market, but it's going to really get there. And I think we'll be there in the next 3 to 6 months. Interview mastery course, still getting great feedback. I'm obviously still doing one-on-one practice interview sessions, one-on-one negotiation sessions, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn review. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. New original long-form content every Monday. Short-form content throughout the rest of the week, 1 or 2. And yeah, I'll be back next week. I'm going to answer any last-minute comments, and then I'm going to bounce off. I agree with you about being a private person when considering putting out content. When I think about putting out content on LinkedIn or whatnot, I just get the icks. Yeah, and I mean, again, remember, the one thing we always need to remember is if we're going to produce content and we get negative comments, over time, if you do it, you're going to get negative comments. You always have to remember that negativity is not about you, it's about them. It's self-reflection of what they don't like about themselves is coming out as negativity against you. And when you have that mindset, you go into a mindset of not being offended, but being sad. You're sad that that person is going through that specific challenge. And we always want to create this positive mindset because, of course, the alternative is worse. I've been there. I've been that other person. So I know what it looks like on this side, and this side is better. That's all I can say. Let's end there. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'll be back next week. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.